All right, we're continuing with our vectors here in geometry. And in our first lesson, we learned different terminology for vectors, how to add them together, scalar multiplication. In our second lesson, we converted from rectangular coordinate form, component form, I should say, into polar form. And now we're going to change from polar form into component form or rectangular form. Number one, we're given vector v, and we're told that its magnitude is 2, and we're told that the angle in standard position is 315 degrees. So let's draw that first. 315 degrees is going to fall into quadrant 4. And what I want to know is I want to know what the reference angle is. If this is 315 degrees, that reference angle is whatever the number is between 315 and 360, which is 45. And we are told the hypotenuse is square root of 2. Now this is a special right triangle yet again. It's a 45, 45, 90. We know that in a 45, 45, 90, whatever the hypotenuse is, the leg is that divided by the square root of 2. So it's going to make each of these legs 1. This is a negative 1, this is a positive 1. So in component form, vector v is 1, negative 1, which means we go to the right 1 and we go down 1. That's it. Number 2. Vector u, 150 degrees, is going to fall into quadrant 2. In order for us to figure this out, we need to know what the reference angle is. It's 30 degrees left to get us from 150 to 180. Since we're told the magnitude is 2, that's the hypotenuse, the radius. And a 30, 60, 90, which this is, the short leg is always half the size of the hypotenuse. Half of 2 is 1. That makes the long leg square root of 3. Now in quadrant 2, we had to go left, so x is negative square root of 3. We had to go up, so y is 1. In component form, vector u is negative square root of 3, positive 1. Now let's check out number 3. Number 3 is going to appear to be much more complicated, but it isn't. So work with me here. 225 degrees is in quadrant 3. What does that make the reference angle? The difference between 180 and 225 is 45. This is a 45, 45, 90. And we're told that the magnitude is 1. So that is the length of this hypotenuse. Now we are used to a 45, 45, 90 having the legs as 1. If the hypotenuse is 1, the legs cannot be 1. That doesn't make any sense. The hypotenuse is times the square root of 1 bigger, which means the leg is the hypotenuse, times square root of 2 bigger, not square root of 1. That means that these legs are square root of 2 divided into 1 smaller. If that doesn't make sense to you, here's another way that you can do this. You can take this 45, 45, 90, and we can say the leg, the short leg is x, short leg is x. Well, let's just say short leg. We don't need to say x. And then the hypotenuse is the short leg times the square root of 2. If you set 1 equal to the short leg square root of 2, I'm not asking you to do all this work. I'm just explaining it if you need an explanation. Then to get short leg by itself, you divide both sides by the square root of 2, and you get the short leg is 1 over the square root of 2. Now, we would like for this denominator to be rationalized. Keep also in mind that we went left and we went down, so these are negative. So we are saying that the components for vector w is negative 1 over the square root of 2 and negative 1 over the square root of 2. And we would rather write that as negative square root of 2 over 2, negative square root of 2 over 2. That is me rationalizing the denominator. And if you need an explanation for that, here's the explanation. We can multiply this by 1 in the form of square root of 2 over square root of 2. Top's going to be negative square root of 2. The bottom's going to be square root of 2 times square root of 2, which is 2. This is the component form of W. If the magnitude is 1 and the angle you're given is 225 degrees. Number 4, vector S, 300 degrees, that's going to fall in quadrant 4. That's going to make the reference angle 60 degrees, which makes this a 30, 60, 90. We are told that the magnitude is 9, that's the length of the hypotenuse. If you recall, the hypotenuse in a 30, 60, 90 is twice as big as the short leg, so that means the short leg is 4.5. Whatever the short leg is, the hypotenuse is that times the square root of 3. So it's 4.5 square root of 3. Now you got to be careful. We're in quadrant 4. We went to the right, which is positive. We went down, which is negative. The component form of S is 4.5 negative 4.5 square roots of 3. And I just wrote the wrong symbols. Component form, we use those harsh less than and greater than symbols. All right, that concludes the notes, folks.